shamanettes, and welcome to the Beauty Shaman. So today we are back with Ben Fuchs, who is a pharmacist, nutritionist, cosmetic chemist, and creator of the fabulous Truth Treatment Skincare. And we are talking about peptides. So Ben, I saw an ad with, it was like a before and after of a woman, and in the before she's like, everything's falling off her face, like she looks terrible, and then the after
Right.
she's like 50 years younger. I'm being facetious, but and it was like, just use this one golden peptide copper thing, and in 2 weeks 10 years off your face. Okay, we know this is BS. What's going on?
Well, peptides, first of all, copper peptides are a unique example of peptides.
Okay.
We've heard about peptides now for probably 20 years or so. You've heard about
Right.
peptides. Peptides are basically molecules, little amino acid blends. A peptide is a string of amino acids. So
Right.
you've got dipeptides would be 2 amino acids, tripeptides would be 3 amino acids, pentapeptides, 5 amino acids. And these different strings of amino acids have different effects. One thing that these peptides can do, or basically what they do, is they tell cells what to do. They have everything's about the cells, right? This is something we have to get our heads around, our minds around, is the fact that the skin is not really the skin. It's the cells plus the stuff that comes out of the cells.
Right.
Okay? When we have aging skin, let's just take wrinkles, for example. What we have is a defect in the stuff that's coming out of the cells. There's not as much stuff coming out of the cells as there should. This is what happens as we age. Aging is when stuff doesn't come out of the cells as well as it should, and when it does come out, it comes out weaker. So the very essence, the sine qua non of anti-aging is to improve the stuff that comes out of cells and to support stuff coming out of cells. So here's a cell, stuff's coming out of it. As we get older, stuff doesn't come out of it. So I'm being very simplistic here. That's basically it.
That's right. Simple's good. Simple's good.
It comes out weak. What a peptide does, generally speaking, what a peptide does is it tells the cells to do something. And there's all kinds of things. It can tell the cell to make collagen. It can tell the cell to attract other cells. It can tell the cells to open up blood vessels. It can tell the cells to close blood vessels. Every activity that a cell does is controlled, usually, not always, but usually by a peptide. Okay? On one level or another. So by putting the thinking is, by putting peptides on your skin selectively, you can tell cells to make more collagen, tell cells to make more hyaluronic acid, tell cells to make less destructive enzymes, to tell cells to make less inflammatory chemicals. You tell the cells whatever you want to do. So about 40 years ago actually about 25 years ago, they did this thing called the Human Genome Project.
Yes, I remember that.
Right? And they figured out what all the peptides, all the various peptides, all the genes make peptides, first of all, I should tell you. And they figured out what genes make what peptides and what all these peptides do. And then they figured out they had all this availability of all these peptides, and they stuck them in skincare products. And they found peptides that did various things, and they stuck them in the skincare products. They found a peptide that stimulates collagen production. They stick it in a skincare product and say, here's the peptide that's going to stimulate collagen production. Or they found a peptide that was going to decrease an MMP enzyme. MMP enzymes break up tissue. And they found a peptide that shuts down MMP enzymes. And they put it in a skincare product. Here's the thing, though. Telling a cell what to do when the cell is not healthy isn't going to get you the benefit that you want. If the cell is crippled and you just command it to do something, it's not going to necessarily do what it's supposed to do. You can't just command the cell. The cell has to have the resources in order to make the collagen. So just like take collagen, for example. So you have a peptide that commands the cell, make collagen. But collagen production requires vitamin C. So if you don't have vitamin C and you tell the cell to make collagen, it isn't going to make collagen. It doesn't have the raw material it needs to do its work. So the peptides are secondary. And this is why people don't get really great results from peptides, because most people are deficient in a primary sense. So if you don't have vitamin C, which is necessary for collagen production, but you tell the cell, hey, cell, make collagen. The cell's gonna be like, I don't have vitamin C, I can't make collagen. And you say, well, here's some more peptide, make collagen. I told you already, I don't have vitamin C, I can't make collagen. Here, I'm gonna put more peptide. And the cell says, I don't have vitamin C, what do you need to hear? Or collagen is made up of 3 amino acids. glycine, lysine, and proline. So you're missing one of the amino acids. You're not eating correctly, right? You don't have enough amino acid. You put a peptide there. The peptide says, make collagen. The cell says, I don't have proline. I can't make collagen. See what I'm saying? You got to have the building blocks. You got to have the raw materials. You got to have the cell has to be healthy enough in order to respond to the command. If you're a handicap, God forbid, you're in a wheelchair, right? And I say, Suzanne, get up and run. You'd be like, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't. And I say, Suzanne, I told you, I'm yelling, run, go run. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't run. You know what I'm saying? The cell has to be healthy enough to accept the command from the peptide. What we want to be focusing on is the health of the tissue. This is why all my truth treatments are all about nutrition. I do use some peptides sometimes because you can do certain things with peptides. Now, in addition to these signaling molecules, and by the way, you talked about copper peptide. I'm going to talk about that here in a second because that's a little bit of an exception. I'll tell you why in a second. So the molecule, the peptides I just talked about are called signaling molecules. They signal things. But there's other kinds of peptides. There's other peptides that are carrier peptides that carry things. Copper peptide carries copper.
How many are there?
There's
Peptides.
a zillion.
That's what I thought. So it's not
Zillions.
like we have peptides. What does that mean? It feels very
Peptides
vague.
are made by the body, thousands upon thousands of peptides.
I'm sorry,
are made by
continue,
the
but I
body.
was just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, cosmetic peptides are a special kind of peptide, but peptides in general are made by the body, zillions, countless. Nobody really knows how many. What we're talking about is cosmetic peptides. There's three major classes of cosmetic peptides. One is what I just talked about, the signaling peptides. They signal things. Turn on my phone here. They signal, they tell the cell to do something, make collagen, reduce inflammation, or open up blood vessels, open up lymphatic vessels, various functions. The other kind of, the second kind of peptide are carrier peptides. And these are peptides that carry things. They deliver things to the cell, like copper peptide delivers copper. Copper is very important for collagen production, for wound healing. So copper peptide is used traditionally in wound healing, and sometimes it'll be used in anti-aging. There's some literature. There's one guy basically who came out with this. He patented the molecule, and he came out with a lot of literature. It's never really been proven, but there's some evidence that suggests that copper peptides may have some good wound healing properties. And I kind of like it. Copper is a very interesting molecule. Now, copper is very unstable. So while copper can have anti-aging effects, help stimulate collagen production, stimulate the production of connective tissue, it can also be pro-aging. It oxidizes quickly. It breaks down quickly.
Is that due to how it's housed, like in the bottle, what it does to your body?
Due to its electronic nature. The molecule, the element copper is very unstable. Like iron, similar to iron, it's very unstable. So it goes from being something that is helpful to something that can actually be harmful. So copper, you got to be very careful. What the peptide does is it protects the copper. It keeps the copper from becoming unstable. It stabilizes the copper so that the copper can be used. It kind of wraps itself around the copper. Like you wouldn't want to put straight copper on your skin, but copper in a peptide, and copper is not really used in skincare products because it's so unstable. But copper in a peptide is protected a little bit. So you can get the benefits of copper without the downside. Nonetheless, there's not a lot of great literature on copper peptide, but there's enough that suggests that it could be beneficial. So those are carrier peptides. The third peptide I find to be the most interesting, those are peptides that control the release of certain elements, neurotransmitters, they call them, nerve chemicals, that can have a relaxing effect on the nerves. They call them Botox-like. So Botox works by relaxing the nerves so that the wrinkles become, the wrinkles drop. You don't have as much wrinkles. Wrinkles are caused by contractions. So by relaxing things, right, when you get Botox, you get your wrinkles disappear temporarily until it wears off.
Yeah.
So these peptides are called neuropeptides, nerve peptides, and they call them Botox-like because they have the same effect as Botox. They have a relaxing effect on the neurology so that they can relax wrinkles again temporarily.
Is it noticeable when you use these?
Yeah, it can be noticeable. Absolutely, it can be noticeable.
Use it every single day.
Like if you go to a party or you want to have a date or whatever, you want to relax your wrinkles, so they can have a superficial effect. So the long story short is peptides are not all that in a bag of chips. They're very expensive. They're expensive to make. They're expensive to use. Even when I buy peptides, and I do use peptides sometimes, they come in these big bottles that are 0.01% peptide, 99.99% water.
Oh my God.
They cost like $700 a kilogram for 0.01% peptide. It's really much, in my opinion, much ado about nothing. Although, like I say, copper peptide does have some may have some wound healing effects, and then neuropeptides will have some superficial cosmetic effects. The other peptides you're not going to really notice as much, certainly not as much as retinol, not as much as vitamin C, not as much as alpha hydroxy acids, not as much as fulvic minerals. There's so many better ingredients to use than, in my opinion, wasting your money on peptides, with perhaps the exception of copper peptides and the superficial effects that you get from neuropeptides, which can be an immediate effect. It can be noticeable if you have a well-formulated product, although the effect will disappear after a little bit. And then also, there's another peptide which you may have heard of called matrixyl. And there's some
that, but yeah,
you haven't heard of matrixyl. That's been around that was one of the first cosmetic peptides. It may have actually been the first cosmetic peptide that came out. And that one's got some interesting wound healing effects and tissue regenerating effects for wrinkles. But again, it's secondary to nutrition. The body, there's no such thing as a peptide deficiency. Your body never stops making peptides. Cells make peptides till the day you die. Vitamin C and essential nutrients are deficiencies are very common. There's no peptide deficiency disease or peptide deficiency condition, but there are plenty of nutritional deficiency conditions. And given how poorly we eat, and given the so-called recommended daily allowance, which gives you just the minimum, bare bones minimum of things like vitamin C and the B complex and vitamin E and essential fatty acids, there's very, very small amounts that are there specifically. There's not even an RDA for essential fatty acids, I don't believe. But for vitamins, there's an RDA, a recommended daily allowance, that's there to keep you from getting diseases, but not there to keep you young and to keep you strong and to keep you vital and to keep you thriving. Yeah, you might not get scurvy, but that doesn't mean you're going to have enough vitamin C to help build collagen and to help strengthen the bones and to help prevent wrinkles and make moisture factors. So the RDAs mislead us into thinking that we're getting enough nutrients. A lot of people are undernutriated because they may not have scurvy, but they may just have accelerated aging.
Right.
Or they may not have pellagra, but they may just be a little bit forgetful or have rosacea or barrier defects. Nutrition, any way you look at it, internal nutrition and topical nutrition are the key to anti-aging. Peptides are, if you have everything set up and you're healthy and strong and vital, then maybe throw in some peptides. If you have some extra money to spend, you can spend it on peptides, but certainly I don't suggest you use peptides instead of vitamin C, instead of vitamin A or retinol, instead of fulvic minerals, instead of the basic building blocks, the basic nutritional building blocks. They're not in the same category.
It's great to hear that. There's so many companies tout them, and I've seen so many ads. And I love to research this stuff. I'm a total geek. I'm not where you're at in knowledge, but as far as just geeking out on it and finding it fascinating, I love doing that. And what I find as you talk and also my own research is, it's way over touted. It's better to take internal care of your body,
100%.
take essential
100%.
supplements.
You're not going to change your life with peptides. You very more than likely aren't even going to notice anything with peptides, with the exception, as I said earlier, of the cosmetic superficial ones that will tighten the skin superficially and temporarily, and also to a certain extent maybe copper peptides if you have a burn or after a peel, and then also possibly in the long run matrixyl. But most of the other ones you're not going to notice. You're not going to notice much effects. And a lot of the tests that they show you are not in vivo. They're in vitro, meaning they're in a test tube in a petri dish. They're not necessarily in real life. Most people aren't going to notice dramatic results from real life if you're just using peptides. And if you're just using peptides and not taking care of your nutrition, you're probably not going to notice any results.
Right. Well, I think that's true with any skincare. You got to take care of your inner body.
And also topical nutrition, Suzanne. There's some, topical vitamin C. You can do a lot of stuff. Topical vitamin C is much cheaper than topical peptides, and it's way more effective. It's not even close.
That's great to know and great to hear. And I appreciate you sharing that. So ladies, take note of that when someone's got one of these great advertisements of, smear your face with peptides and lose 10 years in 5 minutes kind of BS. So anyway, thank you so much, Ben, today for joining us and talking about peptides. And ladies, thank you so much for watching The Beauty Shaman.